A story set in a future not too far from the present. In a beautiful house in a remote area, a man lives a peaceful life. One morning, he decides to go to the mine to search for pyrite, ignoring his mother's call. Whether it was bad luck or karma, while enjoying his work, he is suddenly bitten by a snake. Panicking, he tries to pull out his phone, but it slips from his hand. He then sucks out the venom from the wound and rushes back home, only to collapse onto his bed and begin hallucinating. Hours later, the man still cannot move, though he can vaguely see his severely swollen hand. He hears someone knocking at the door and the sound of a helicopter, but he is unable to move or speak. That night, he crawls and struggles desperately to get water for his body, calling out for his mother, while messages from her appear on his phone saying, "We love you." Eventually, one day, the man wakes up in a much better condition, his hand back to normal. After cleaning his car, he drives into the city, only to be utterly shocked when he finds no one, not in the city nor on the roads. And so the question remains, what really happened? While trying to control his panic, the man, Isherwood Williams, returns to his car and turns on the news radio, which seems to be a recorded broadcast reminding the public that the virus is highly contagious and deadly, urging everyone to remain indoors. When he arrives at his family home, Ish is devastated to find both his parents lifeless. After taking time to grieve, he buries them in the backyard, giving them a farewell kiss. Resting in his childhood room, Ish continues searching through the city, discovering dozens of bodies in a church. He then gathers supplies, including weapons, and drives to the bridge, only to find it barricaded. Frustrated, Ish screams before taking another route toward Las Vegas, which also turns out to be desolate. After fruitless searching through buildings, Ish decides to rest in a jacuzzi. Later, he heads to a bar for a drink, where, shockingly, he discovers other survivors, Milton and Anne. They explain that they are immune and have been trapped there since the outbreak began. Milton shows Ish a news recording on his phone, revealing that the virus is new, its origins unknown, vaccines ineffective, panic widespread, and eventually the government collapsed as the virus swept across the nation. Ish admits that his parents once told him about a strange new illness, but he never thought it would be this severe. Milton and Anne further explain that all nations have collapsed, meaning only a handful of survivors like them may remain in the entire world. Anne confesses she witnessed her husband and daughter die during a video call. While Milton and Anne continue drinking, Ish leaves for the elevator, crushed by the realization that he has no idea where to go or what to do, until he falls asleep on the floor. The next morning, he finds Anne trying on expensive clothes from a boutique. Ish tells her that life always has meaning, but Anne disagrees, saying that even if the heart still beats, she doesn't feel truly alive. Later, the three gather for breakfast, and Ish learns that Milton's wife died in the same hotel. Ish announces his intention to leave, angering Anne, who walks away, despite Milton's attempt to convince him to stay. Milton explains they have enough supplies and electricity, and hints, while showing a gun, that he has a backup plan if all hope is lost. But Ish dismisses it, insisting the country has enough resources to survive for decades. Ish later speaks with Anne, inviting her to join him, but she refuses. As he leaves, a gunshot rings out. Frustrated, Ish drives recklessly until he nearly runs over a dog, stopping just in time. Seeing it as a sign, Ish names the dog Lucky and immediately takes him along. Sometime later, Ish stops by a library to gather every book he can find on survival. Not knowing what else to do, he returns to his old home to start a new life with Lucky. A year passes, and Ish is still surviving, busy with housework and exercise, but he begins to feel his sanity slipping. Sometimes he drives his car aimlessly around the park. One morning, Lucky barks after spotting smoke in the distance. Ish and Lucky quickly drive toward the source until they arrive at a house. A woman appears on the roof aiming a rifle at them, but lowers it after hearing Ish's explanation, inviting him inside to share food, drinks, and conversation. They quickly grow comfortable with each other, and when Ish is about to leave, the woman, whose name is Emma, asks him to stay the night. The next morning, Ish convinces Emma to live with him so they can keep each other company. When Emma sees Ish's home, Ish discreetly removes the rope he had once hung in despair. She then notices rats had gotten into the kitchen, so the two head into the city to find poison and traps, along with other supplies. Days turn into weeks, and Emma and Ish grow closer, caring for each other as they settle into a new routine. They plant vegetables, go fishing for food, and witness animals freely roaming the streets now that humans are gone. Ish also builds a chicken coop in hopes of starting a small farm. For fuel, he continues siphoning from abandoned vehicles nearby, while for electricity, he begins installing solar panels on the roof, despite having no real experience, until one day he slips. Emma helps nurse him back to health, admitting she misses having people around. Her words are not just small talk, as one night she looks through old family photos and breaks down in tears. Once recovered, Ish resumes his projects. But then, to his shock, Emma confesses she is pregnant. Panic overwhelms him. Not only are there no doctors or midwives, but he doubts whether it's right to bring a child into such a broken world. Fortunately, Emma calms him and assures him everything will be fine. Ish then returns to the library, searching for books on pregnancy and childbirth. Months later, their small garden begins producing abundant vegetables, and their farm yields eggs and more chickens. One day, Emma reveals she needs protein from meat, not just vegetables, forcing Ish to go hunting. After much hesitation, he finally shoots a cow, apologizing as he does. Following the instructions from his books, Ish butchers the cow for meat and hauls it back in a box. A few days later, Ish completes the solar panels, finally giving the house electricity, allowing them to refrigerate food. But their happiness is short-lived. Emma discovers a giant rat in the basement. She is forced to drown it as their traps aren't large enough. Looking out the window, they realize hundreds of rats are swarming toward the house. Ish realizes their trash has attracted them, so he rushes outside to burn it all while Emma shoots at the rats closing in. Unfortunately, Ish also had to burn the remaining cow bones. Even so, more rats kept coming, forcing the couple to run back into the house and shut every door, window, and crack they could find. Emma even poured a white liquid into the toilet to keep rats from entering. Suddenly, the sound of crying reminded them that Lucky was still outside, so Ish had no choice but to open the door to save him. Afterward, Emma tended to Lucky. This experience made Ish fearful of losing Emma during childbirth, but she reassured him, admitting that she had given birth to 2 daughters before without complications, though sadly, both had died from the virus. Months later, the rat problem was finally brought under control thanks to the stray cats roaming the streets. They could finally open their home again and enjoy the outdoors. Not long after, Emma revealed she was going into labor. The birth went smoothly, and they became the parents of a healthy, beautiful baby girl. Filled with hope for the future, Emma wrote their address on a city wall to invite other survivors to join them, a message seen from afar by a mysterious figure. 6 years passed since Ish began his life in this new world. While driving alone one day, he accidentally hit a puma. He drew his weapon, ready to end the animal's suffering, but at that moment, he realized someone was watching him from the forest. When he tried speaking, the girl panicked and tried to defend herself. Ish backed off, swearing he meant no harm, explaining that he had food, shelter, a family, and other survivors with him. The girl only screamed again and ran. When Ish returned to his truck, he noticed the puma was gone, and to his surprise, the girl was following him. She accepted an apple he offered and climbed into the back of the truck. Ish brought her home, where it was revealed he and his wife now had 2 children, Heather and Alex, and that Emma was pregnant again. 2 other survivors, Jorge and Moran, had also joined them. Everyone was kind to the new girl, but she remained silent, refusing to leave the truck, leading Ish to conclude she was likely traumatized. That night, the girl slept in the truck. The next morning, Moran approached her with breakfast. During the encounter, Moran was shocked when the girl grabbed her wrist after noticing a familiar scar. To earn her trust, Moran offered her hair to touch, then shared the story of how she and Jorge had arrived there, eventually convincing the girl to bathe. Meanwhile, Ish and Jorge explored the forest and discovered a small cabin with graves behind it. Back with Moran, She examined the girl's belongings and found disturbing drawings in her diary, along with a letter revealing the girl's name, Eve. Using her name, Maureen managed to get a response from her. Eve even accepted clean clothes and a room. That night, Maureen shared the contents of the letter with the others. It was written by Eve's mother, pleading with whoever found it to take care of her daughter. As it turned out, when the pandemic began, Eve's abusive father took out his anger on her, and tragically, her sick mother couldn't protect her. In the end, the group agreed to welcome Eve as part of their small family. Several weeks passed, and Emma gave birth to an adorable baby boy named Joey. A year later, the group was enjoying a peaceful day when suddenly an alarm sounded, signaling an intruder. After instructing everyone to take cover, Ish, Emma, and Jorge armed themselves and went to investigate, only to be confronted at gunpoint. The armed woman was named Molly, and after some tense debate, everyone agreed to lower their weapons. Molly introduced her friends, John, Ezra, and Rafe, and they all decided to move to a safer place to talk. During the introductions, Maureen realized John was a famous musician. The newcomers explained they had traveled from Oregon, fleeing the outbreak. Emma suggested they could stay in one of the nearby empty houses, though Ish remained suspicious. The next day, everyone gathered to search for supplies, leaving the children behind under strict rules set by Ish. Molly asked about medicine at the nearest hospital, but Ish insisted it was all gone and that they should focus on food. In town, a buffalo or bull blocked the road, but Ish told them to ignore it. The group split up to scavenge. Ish collected food, Jean grabbed alcohol, and Ezra found a guitar. When they regrouped, they realized Molly was missing. Meanwhile, Molly had gone to the hospital against orders, where she found countless decaying corpses. She then encountered a stray dog and was forced to fend it off with a fire extinguisher, which she also used to break into a locked room, discovering a massive stockpile of medicine. When she finally returned, Ish scolded her harshly for breaking the rules, but fell silent upon seeing the medicine she had recovered. That night after dinner, Jean captivated everyone with her singing, though the mood lightened further when Ezra performed a stand-up comedy routine with terrible jokes. Later, Jorge shared cherished memories with Morin, drawing them closer. Meanwhile, Jean drank heavily in the kitchen, and the next morning, Molly discovered Jean had been trying to induce a miscarriage. It was clear Jean was under immense mental strain, but Molly promised not to tell Ezra. Time passed and the group continued living in harmony. Jean eventually gave birth to a healthy baby, and Morin also had a child. By the 14th year, everyone still lived together as one big family, celebrating Heather's birthday. Ish often took Joey to the library, hoping to instill a love of books in him. One afternoon, Ish and Joey noticed the wind picking up and rain starting to fall, so they rushed home to ensure everyone was safe. The only one missing was Lucky. After searching, Ish was devastated to find Lucky crushed beneath a fallen tree. The next day, they buried him in the backyard, and Ish admitted he felt a deep loss. Later, as Ish watched the children playing, something shocking occurred. A puma suddenly attacked him. This terrifying moment finally broke Eve's long silence as she screamed for help after years of muteness. The other adults quickly rescued Ish and carried him to the medical room where Molly, acting as the group's doctor, guided everyone to treat his wounds. She had to give Ish CPR to stabilize him before stitching him up. Later, when things calmed down, Emma took a rifle into the forest, tracked down the puma that had attacked Ish, and killed it as revenge. When Ish regained consciousness, Molly confessed something she had kept secret for years. She was not really a doctor, but only a medical student who had been expelled from university. Even so, Ish trusted her knowledge, and thanks to Molly, he was eventually able to walk again and return to his family. By the 17th year, Joey had become a skilled fisherman, which made Ish very proud, but also sparked jealousy in Alex. Meanwhile, Rafe and Heather were now old enough to scavenge on their own, and while searching abandoned houses, they grew closer. Their bond blossomed into romance, and eventually, they planned to leave and explore the world together. After much discussion, their parents reluctantly agreed and helped the young couple pack their vehicle with supplies and weapons. One day, Ezra noticed that the crops looked dry, which was unusual. In the kitchen, Eve discovered that no water came from the faucet and, in her panic, broke the handle. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Ish investigated the reservoir and found it completely dry. The region was suffering from drought. The pipes had corroded and broken from years without maintenance. With only a week's worth of water left, if rationed, they desperately hoped for rain. At that moment, they saw two vehicles passing by. Alarmed, the group rushed home and warned everyone to prepare in case these strangers were dangerous. Sure enough, the newcomers soon arrived. Among them were Charlie and Perry, who offered a bottle of water as a gesture of goodwill. Charlie explained that his group had discovered drilling equipment in Nevada and had since been digging wells. He offered to help, and Emma eventually opened the gate, allowing them to share a meal together. Though cautious, Ish agreed to trade all their spare fuel in exchange for a working well. After lunch, Charlie and his men demonstrated their drilling skills, claiming it would take about 72 hours to finish. That evening, Ish went hunting with Charlie, but was startled when Charlie suddenly fired a shot right behind him to kill the prey. Charlie boasted of his sharpshooting skills, adding that he had trained on more than just deer. Later that night, he showed off his scars and made Eve visibly uncomfortable, a detail Ish noticed in silence. The next day, Ish told Alex not to assist Charlie with the drilling because he didn't trust the man. But Alex felt his father was being unfair, never giving him real responsibilities, and decided to ignore the warning. When Ish confided his concerns to Emma, she dismissed them, thinking he was just being paranoid. Eventually, Charlie struggled to break through a layer of rock, but after much effort, the drill finally pierced through and the work continued. Meanwhile, Ish noticed his family growing closer to Charlie's group and singing together while they worked. Frustrated and uneasy, he wandered into the forest to clear his head, only to become lost. That same night, Charlie offered Jean a cigarette and pressured her to drink alcohol. When she refused, he pushed harder, backing off only when Jorge stepped outside and interrupted them. Meanwhile, Emma grew worried about her husband and prepared to search for him. Luckily, before long, Ish returned home. Emma was, of course, furious, but Ish quickly admitted his mistake and confessed he was deeply concerned about what might happen once they actually struck water. Though it took longer than 72 hours, the drill finally reached deep enough, and water burst from the ground. While everyone celebrated, Ish told Charlie to take the fuel and leave, but Charlie replied that he was starting to like it here. After the well was properly set up, they held a party to celebrate, though Ish remained uneasy, his anxiety only growing. At the same time, Emma spoke with Perry, asking where their group was heading next. Perry admitted she didn't know. It all depended on Charlie, and it seemed he really wanted to settle down here, in the place he named San Lupo. Late at night, Ish heard a woman scream. He rushed to investigate and saw Charlie stepping out of Eve's cabin, with his man Silas standing guard outside. When Ish confronted him, Charlie brushed it off and returned to his RV, where even Perry was furious with him. Not long after, Ish entered Eve's cabin and found her crying. Charlie had assaulted her. The family immediately gathered to decide how to handle Charlie. They all agreed they couldn't just send him away because he might return, so the only option left was to eliminate him. A heated debate followed. Some saw it as self-defense, while others feared it was murder. Finally, they voted, and consensus was reached. Ish then went to Charlie's RV and told him to leave. Charlie not only refused, but also insulted Ish and his family. With no other choice, Ish killed the man. Later, as Ish scrubbed the blood from his hammer, he couldn't help but reflect on the irony. The blood belonged to the very man who had given them water. Emma reassured him, saying he did what had to be done, all to protect their family. The next day, Charlie's body was disposed of. Jean's family told Perry that Charlie was gone, but that her group could stay as long as they followed the rules. Perry understood the real meaning and seemed relieved, revealing that she too had been a victim of Charlie. The rest of the group was informed, and only Silas resisted, insisting that Charlie had never planned to change. When Ish's group armed themselves, Silas grew defiant. But Corey chose to surrender, realizing he could start a better life without Charlie. One by one, the others followed, everyone except Silas. Later, when Alex asked about Charlie, Ish told him the man had been dealt with for hurting Eve. Alex struggled to accept this truth. At the same time, Silas begged to stay, saying he had nowhere else to go. But Ish refused, knowing Silas had been complicit in Charlie's crimes. By the 20th year, it became clear that Earth had begun to heal thanks to the drastic reduction in human activity. We return to the lives of Ish and the other survivors, gathered together to watch Joey's presentation. With Corey's help, the young man had worked tirelessly to build a prototype airplane. Though it still needed adjustments, everyone hoped it would soon take flight. The group was filled with excitement. Everyone except Alex, who remained bitterly jealous. One night, something unexpected happened. While Ish was reading Joey a book, Joey suddenly confessed he wasn't feeling well. Ish quickly brewed him an herbal root remedy, but by midnight, Joey stumbled into his parents' room, drenched in sweat, and collapsed. Ish rushed to find Molly, only to discover that in the medical room, several others, including Corey, were also sick. Molly explained that the illness was spreading too quickly to be a common flu, and suspected it might be linked to the same virus that had once wiped out humanity. Still in denial, Ish brought Joey back to his room and cared for him, only to be haunted by hallucinations of Charlie watching from the shadows. As time passed, Ish spent nearly every waking hour at Joey's side, fueling Alex's resentment. Alex felt abandoned, believing his father never showed the same devotion when he had been ill. At one point, Ish was stunned when Heather finally returned home. Tragically, she was alone. Rafe had died. Seeing how exhausted her father was, Heather offered to take over Joey's bedside care. Days turned into weeks, and Joey showed no signs of recovery. Ish fell deeper into despair, convinced he was being punished for killing Charlie. In desperation, he decided to cross the barricaded bridge. By using a bicycle, he managed to slip through and reach a city overrun with wild vegetation. There, he rushed into a hospital, broke through doors, and discovered a stash of medicine. During his frantic search, he was plagued again by hallucinations. Ish then wandered into a place of worship, where he broke down, begging God to take his life in exchange for Joey's. Meanwhile, back at home, Heather shared her journey with Jean and Jorge. As planned, she and Rafe had headed north, but they hadn't found a single living soul. Instead, they marveled at the beauty of beaches, so different from the ruined cities. One day, they spotted strange markings, numbers with arrows painted on a building, and began following them. But the signs never led anywhere. They camped in the mountains for a few days, where a strange man appeared. Startled, he bolted the moment he saw Heather. Later, however, he returned, this time holding Rafe hostage in exchange for food. When Rafe resisted, the man stabbed him to death. After burying her beloved, Heather set out on foot to return home, since their car had broken down. Hearing her story drove Jean to drink again, but not out of addiction. She quickly sobered up, reminding herself she still had to live and raise her daughter. Back home, Ish prepared for a blood transfusion, hoping to pass his immunity on to Joey. Heather intervened, calming him and urging him not to act rashly. Instead, she led him to Molly, who had created a new medicine from the yew tree. Carrying Joey in his arms, Ish hurried to Molly, who explained that the remedy would take a few days to take effect. With hope renewed, Ish brought Joey deep into the forest, accompanied by Jorge so they could pray over him. A few days later, everyone began to feel better. Molly explained that this was likely a variant of the original virus, but much weaker this time and treatable. Meanwhile, Corey asked Heather about the description of the man who attacked Rafe and realized that the strange man was Silas. Corey decided not to press further, not wanting to stir up new problems. Sadly, Molly's medicine did not work on Joey. The young man spoke his final words to his parents before closing his eyes forever. Ish could not accept this. He drove recklessly at high speed, ignoring his family's pleas. He came across an old message Emma had written years ago, erased it, then went to the library, intending to burn all the books. Back at home, Joey was buried alongside others who had not survived the virus, and a funeral was held. Emma later found Ish still in the library, holding a lighter. She reminded him that loss had always been part of life, even before Joey, and that he still had other children who needed him. Though her words persuaded him to return home, Ish still didn't know how to move forward. Days later, Ish went hiking and witnessed a breathtaking sunrise, reminding him of the beauty of the world as it was now. When he returned, he told the children that he had been wrong all along for teaching them lessons from the old world. Now they lived in a different world, and he announced he no longer needed to be their teacher, because their true teacher was the world itself. What he meant was giving them the freedom to learn directly from the life of this new world. A year later, Ish finally gathered the courage to enter Joey's room. While sorting through unused belongings, he found Joey's diary. In it, he learned that Joey had dreamed of finding more survivors, even though his father disagreed, and had begun designing a radio and antenna. Wanting to honor Joey's work, Ish told the others they now had many new projects to complete together. Eventually, the radio was finished, with its antenna mounted atop their home. The radio worked, though no one responded at first. Ish spent countless hours cycling through frequencies, hoping someone out there would answer. One afternoon, Emma convinced him to rest and join the others in a baseball game. They spent the whole evening having fun. During a quiet moment, Heather wondered aloud why the game had so many numbers. Ish explained that in the old world, people had been obsessed with statistics, measuring and ranking everything. Hearing this reminded Heather of the strange numbers with arrows she and Rafe had once seen. Ish realized they might have been frequency numbers. The group rushed back to the radio and tried Heather's numbers. After several tense minutes of silence, at last, a response came through. On the other end was a community of 77 survivors, less than 100 miles away, living in what had once been a state park. They called it Point Lobos. After much discussion, Ish's group considered the possibility of joining forces with this new survivor community. The film closed with a scene set in the 50th year. An elderly Ish handed his hammer to a young man and gave his final lesson: that people may come and go, but the earth will always endure. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.